Don't ask me to hold him! That baby isn't mine!
I never cheated on you!
Then explain the 0% match!
She is telling the truth. This child's DNA belongs to your dead brother. Ask your mother what she did with Luca's frozen sample at the fertility clinic.
Mom, what did you do?
Several doctors were cleared of direct involvement, but were criticized for failing to verify documentation. Compensation fund was established for affected patients. Investigators discovered that my case was not the clinic's only violation, although it was the only confirmed instance involving a deceased donor and a family conspiracy. Evelyn was charged with conspiracy, fraud, falsification of medical documents, and unlawful use of reproductive material. At trial, she wore dark conservative suits and presented herself as a grieving mother who had made a misguided decision out of love. Her attorney repeatedly said she had wanted to give her family hope. Then, prosecutors played her recorded interview. An investigator asked, "Did Claire consent to carrying Lucas's biological child?" Evelyn answered, "Claire wanted a Bennett baby." The details were irrelevant. That sentence ended any sympathy the jury might have felt. I testified for 2 days. Evelyn's attorney asked whether I was grateful to have Noah. "Yes," I said. "Would you agree that without Mrs. Bennett's actions, your son would not exist? Noah's existence does not transform a violation into a gift. But you love him completely. Then how can you condemn the decision that created him? Because loving my child does not require approving the crime committed against his mother and biological father." The courtroom fell silent. Later, Ethan testified. His mother stared at him as though she expected loyalty. He looked at the jury and admitted that his parents had concealed his infertility. He described how Evelyn arranged our fertility care. He also admitted his own cruelty. "My mother created the deception," he said, "but I chose what I did after the DNA result. Claire did not force me to humiliate her. My mother did not force me to abandon her. Those decisions were mine." Evelyn began crying. Ethan did not look at her. The jury convicted her on every major count. She received a prison sentence, probation after release, and a permanent prohibition against working with medical, financial, or guardianship decisions. The court also issued a protective order preventing her from contacting Noah without my written consent. When sentencing ended, Evelyn turned toward me. "He has Lucas's eyes," she said. I answered quietly. "He has his own eyes." Ethan heard me. Outside the courthouse, he asked whether he could see Noah. By then, Noah was 11 months old. He had Ethan's dark hair, Lucas's blue crescent birthmark, and a laugh that began as a hiccup before filling the whole room. I had allowed Ethan to receive occasional photographs through our attorneys, but he had not held the baby since birth. "What role are you asking for?" I said. "I don't know. That is the problem. He is my nephew." "Yes. I was prepared to be his father before the test." "No. You were prepared to be the father of a child you believed proved something about you." "That is not fair." Neither was leaving me homeless. He accepted the words without arguing. "I am in therapy," he said. "That is good. I am trying to understand why I became so cruel." "That is also good. Does it matter to you?" "It matters to Noah if you plan to enter his life." We began slowly. Ethan's first visit lasted 20 minutes and took place in a family counselor's office. He sat across the room while Noah played with wooden blocks. For 10 minutes, he said almost nothing. Then Noah crawled toward him and grabbed his silver wristwatch. Ethan laughed. The sound broke into a sob. He covered his mouth and looked away. I did not comfort him. That moment belonged to the consequences of his own choices. Over the next year, Ethan visited once every 2 weeks. He never called himself Noah's father. He never asked Noah to carry the Bennett name. He became Uncle Ethan. He learned how to warm a bottle, change a diaper, calm a fever, and read the same picture book 12 times without complaining. Trust did not return because he performed a few good actions. It returned in small pieces because he remained consistent when no one praised him. I did not reconcile with him. Love without safety is not enough, and apologies do not erase character revealed under pressure. Ethan eventually accepted that. 1. Evening. After returning Noah from a supervised visit, he stood outside my apartment. "I spent months hoping you would forgive me and take me back," he said. "I know. I finally understand that forgiveness and reconciliation are different." "Yes. Do you forgive me?" I looked at him. "I no longer want your mistake to control my life." He nodded. "That is more than I deserve, but I will never pretend it did not happen." "You shouldn't. That was the closest we ever came to discussing our marriage again." Dr. Hale remained part of Noah's life. He retired from full-time hospital work when Noah was 3, but continued volunteering at a community clinic. Every year on Noah's birthday, he sent a card with a small drawing of a crescent moon. When Noah was old enough to ask about the mark behind his ear, I told him it came from part of his biological family. I did not tell him that it exposed a crime. Not yet. Children deserve truth. But they deserve it at an age when truth will not become a burden they cannot carry. When Noah was 6, he asked why Uncle Ethan looked like him. I explained that Ethan had a brother named Lucas who died before Noah was born. "Was Lucas my dad?" he asked. "Lucas was your biological father, but he did not choose to become one. Someone used part of him without permission." Noah frowned. "Did he know about me?" "No." "Would he have liked me?" I felt tears in my eyes. I never knew him well enough to promise what he would have felt, but Dr. Hale said Lucas was gentle, funny, and loved astronomy. You love stars too. Noah looked toward the telescope Ethan had given him. Can I be sad for someone I never met? Yes. Can I still love Uncle Ethan? Yes. Can I be mad at Grandma Evelyn? Yes. He thought for several seconds. That is a lot of things at once. It is. He climbed into my lap. Do you wish I wasn't born that way? I held him tightly. I wish no one had lied or taken away anyone's choice. But I have never wished for a world without you. That answer became the foundation of how we discussed his story. Noah was never a scandal. He was never evidence. He was never Lucas's replacement. He was a child born from circumstances adults had made complicated, but his life belonged to him. Years later, Noah asked to read the court records. Ethan and I sat beside him. By then, Ethan had remarried. His wife, Rachel, knew the entire history, and never pressured Noah to define their relationship differently. Ethan and Rachel adopted a daughter after deciding that parenthood mattered more than genetics. When Noah finished reading Evelyn's messages, he closed the folder. She kept saying she did it for family, he said. Yes, I replied, but she hurt everyone in the family. Yes, he looked at Ethan. Why did you believe Mom cheated? Ethan did not defend himself because I cared more about protecting my pride than protecting someone I loved. Did you hate her? No, I hated what I believed her actions said about me. That sounds selfish. It was. Noah nodded. Thank you for telling the truth. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I should have done it sooner. Noah later chose to visit Evelyn once, after she was released from prison. The meeting took place in a supervised facility. Evelyn had aged dramatically. Her hair was white and her hands trembled. When Noah entered, she began crying. You look exactly like Lucas, she said. Noah sat across from her. My name is Noah. I know. Then please call me Noah. She nodded. I loved your father. You used him after he died. Her lips trembled. I could not bear the thought that nothing of him would remain. His life already happened. People remembered him. It was not enough. It had to be enough because it was not your decision. Evelyn looked at me as though I had taught him to say those words. I had not, Noah continued. I wanted to meet you because I needed to know whether you were sorry. I am sorry that everyone suffered. That is not the same as being sorry for what you did. She began crying harder. I gave you life. Noah stood. My mother gave me life. Doctors helped her. You committed a crime. Evelyn reached toward him. He stepped back. I hope you learned to remember Lucas without trying to own me. Then he walked out. Outside the building, he took my hand. I don't want to see her again, he said. You do not have to. Are you disappointed? No. Uncle Ethan might be. Ethan, who had waited beside the car, shook his head. I am proud of you for deciding what keeps you safe. Noah looked relieved. That was the moment I understood how completely Ethan had changed. Not because he wanted my forgiveness, not because he wanted to repair his reputation. He had changed because he finally understood that love does not grant ownership. Evelyn had believed motherhood entitled her to control her sons. Ethan once believed marriage entitled him to punish me without listening. The fertility clinic believed paperwork could replace consent. Every adult who harmed us confused connection with possession. Noah taught us something different. Family is not proved by blood, DNA reports, birthmarks, last names, or legal demands. Family is proved by who remains gentle when anger would be easier. It is proved by who listens before accusing. It is proved by who protects a child without trying to own the child's story. The night Noah was born, Ethan entered the delivery room carrying a DNA report like a weapon. He screamed that the baby was not his. Biologically, he was correct. Morally, he understood nothing. 6 weeks later, I learned I was pregnant. Ethan initially celebrated, then his attitude changed. He began coming home late. He guarded his phone. He criticized my appearance. He slept in the guest room and claimed my pregnancy made him uncomfortable. 3 months later, he demanded a prenatal paternity test. I thought the request was cruel, but agreed because I believed the result would end his suspicion. The test showed that Ethan was not the biological father. He did not ask how that could be possible. He did not request a clinic investigation. He packed a suitcase, called me disgusting, and filed for divorce. Within 2 weeks, he moved into an apartment with a woman named Vanessa Reed, one of his firm's clients. By the time I was 7 months pregnant, Ethan had frozen our joint accounts and challenged my right to remain in our home. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. I worked remotely during the day and entered medical billing records at night. When I developed high blood pressure, Dr. Hale told me to reduce my workload. I laughed because stopping work meant losing the apartment. Evelyn never called to ask whether I needed food, transportation, or medical care. She sent one message: do not contact our family again unless you are prepared to identify the real father. Now she stood inside my delivery room and admitted that she had arranged the conception herself. I looked at her. You knew the DNA test would not match Ethan. Her expression revealed the answer before she spoke. I expected him to accept the baby without testing, but when he demanded the test, you let him believe I cheated. I needed time to correct the records. You watched him divorce me. I could not admit what I had done. You let me spend my pregnancy alone. I was trying to preserve access to the child. I stared at her. Access? Evelyn looked toward Noah. He is Lucas's son. No, I said. He is my son. He carries my dead child's blood. He is not a memorial you can own. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You would never have become pregnant without my decision. Dr. Hale moved closer. Leave the room. She ignored him. Claire, you are emotional and exhausted. Once you recover, we can make a sensible arrangement. What arrangement? The baby should be raised as a Bennett. Ethan finally spoke. Stop. Evelyn turned toward him. You should be grateful. You could raise your brother's son as your own. You destroyed my marriage. Claire would have left eventually when she learned you were infertile. I saw Ethan flinch. Evelyn continued. I gave you both a child. You gave us a lie. I gave Lucas a future. You used his body after he died. For the first time, Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. You do not understand what it was like to lose him. Ethan's voice became quiet. I lost him too. You moved forward. I could not. So you replaced him with Claire's baby? I preserved part of him. Ethan shook his head. No. You stole from him, from Claire, and from me. A hospital security officer arrived at the door. Dr. Hale asked Evelyn to leave. She refused until the officer stepped toward her. As she picked up her handbag, she looked directly at me. You cannot keep Lucas's son away from me. I held Noah closer. Watch me. The officer escorted her into the hallway. Ethan remained beside the bed. His anger had disappeared, but his presence still made my skin tighten. He looked at Noah, then at me. Claire, I didn't know. I laughed once, though nothing was funny. Neither did I. I thought you betrayed me. You wanted to think that. The test said you were not the father. It did not say I cheated. What else was I supposed to believe? You were supposed to remember the woman you married. Ethan lowered his eyes. I was hurt. So you decided to hurt me more. I made a mistake. You called me a whore in front of your family. His face reddened. I was angry. You told your lawyer I had committed marital fraud. I can withdraw that. You let me lose my health insurance during a high-risk pregnancy. I did not realize. You knew. He fell silent. I continued. You knew I was working 2 jobs. You knew I had no car after you took my name off the lease. You knew I was walking to prenatal appointments in winter. I thought another man was responsible for you. And if there had been another man, would that have made the baby less human? Ethan looked toward Noah. I want to make this right. You cannot. He is my brother's son. He is not your opportunity to repair what you did. I am his uncle. You entered this room screaming at him before you even saw his face. I was not screaming at him. Children do not understand the difference. Noah began crying again. I gathered him carefully against my chest. Dr. Hale checked my blood pressure and ordered Ethan to leave. Ethan hesitated. Claire, please, leave. He looked at the doctor, perhaps expecting another man to negotiate on his behalf. Dr. Hale opened the door. She has answered you. Ethan walked out without touching his nephew. The investigation began before I left the hospital. Dr. Hale reported the suspected unauthorized use of reproductive material to the hospital's legal department, the state medical board, and law enforcement. The fertility clinic initially denied everything. Its director claimed that Ethan's identification had always been attached to the sample used during my procedure. Then investigators compared the clinic's electronic records with the cryogenic storage facility's access logs. One of Lucas Bennett's containers had been removed from storage 3 days before my final procedure. The authorization form carried Lucas's digital signature. Lucas had been dead for 7 years and 9 months. Security footage from the storage facility showed a clinic administrator named Marjorie Pike collecting the container. Bank records showed that Evelyn transferred $75,000 into a consulting company owned by Marjorie's husband. The payment occurred 4 days before the sample was removed. Investigators found messages between the 2 women. In one message, Evelyn wrote, Ethan must never know he cannot father a child. Claire only needs to believe the sample is his. Marjorie replied, and if the baby is tested? Evelyn answered, he will not test. He wants an heir too badly. Another message was sent after Ethan scheduled the prenatal paternity test. Evelyn wrote, delay the report. I need time. Marjorie replied, the outside laboratory is not under my control. That was when Evelyn's plan began to collapse. But instead of admitting the truth, she allowed Ethan to destroy me. She believed that once the baby was born, she could use money and lawyers to gain access. She underestimated how much evidence she had created. She also underestimated Dr. Hale. Lucas had been one of his patients during cancer treatment. Years earlier, Lucas told him that Evelyn treated his stored samples as though they belonged to her. Dr. Hale warned the storage facility not to release them without direct authorization. After Lucas died, someone transferred the samples to another facility under a different account number. Dr. Hale did not know where they had gone. When he saw Noah's birthmark and reviewed the newborn genetic marker, he finally understood. The following week, Ethan came to my apartment. I watched him through the security camera and did not open the door. He called me from the hallway. I brought groceries, he said. Leave them outside. I need to talk to you. We have lawyers for that. I am not trying to discuss the divorce. The divorce is already final. I want to apologize. You apologized at the hospital. No, I said I made a mistake. That was not enough. I remained silent. he continued. I abandoned you because believing you cheated was easier than asking whether my family had lied to me. That was the first honest thing he had said. I was ashamed, he said. When the test came back, I thought everyone would see me as a fool. I wanted to punish you before anyone could pity me. You succeeded, I know. No, Ethan. You know the words. You do not know what it felt like, his voice cracked. Tell me. I looked at Noah sleeping in his bassinet. It felt like begging the pharmacy to let me pay for blood pressure medication 3 days late. It felt like sitting alone in an emergency room because I was afraid the baby had stopped moving. It felt like carrying groceries upstairs while trying not to faint. It felt like hearing strangers repeat the story you told, that I trapped you with another man's child. I am sorry. You cannot apologize your way backward through time. I know. Then stop asking me to make you feel forgiven. He left the groceries and walked away. For several months, every conversation between us happened through attorneys. Ethan withdrew every accusation he had made during the divorce. He paid the medical bills that should have remained covered under our marital insurance. He returned the money he had removed from our joint account. He also signed a sworn statement admitting that he had spread false claims about me before investigating the fertility clinic. His statement helped when I sued the clinic. Evelyn fought every accusation. She insisted that Lucas would have wanted a child. Prosecutors asked whether she had any written proof. She had none. Lucas's signed instructions stated the opposite. He had written that no one, including his family, could authorize use of his samples after death. Evelyn called the document a moment of fear. The court called it consent. Marjorie Pike eventually accepted a plea agreement. She admitted relabeling Lucas's sample, altering the electronic file, and forging the release authorization. In exchange for reduced sentencing, she testified against Evelyn and the fertility clinic. The clinic lost its license. The first thing my ex-husband said when he walked into my delivery room was not congratulations. He did not ask whether I was alive. He did not look at the newborn sleeping against my chest and ask whether his tiny lungs were healthy. He threw a folded DNA report onto my hospital blanket and screamed, "Don't ask me to hold him. That baby is not mine. My name is Claire Morgan. I was 31 years old when I gave birth to my son, Noah, inside St. Catherine's Medical Center on a freezing January night. By then, I had been divorced for 5 months. I had no husband beside my bed, no mother waiting in the hallway, and no family member holding my hand through the contractions. The only person standing beside me was Dr. Samuel Hale, the senior obstetrician who had treated me throughout the final months of my pregnancy. He was 64, silver-haired, calm under pressure, and respected by nearly everyone in the hospital. That night, however, calm disappeared from his face. Dr. Hale was holding Noah when Ethan stormed into the room. My ex-husband looked exactly as he had during our marriage. Tall, handsome, perfectly dressed, and completely certain that his anger gave him the right to destroy anyone standing in front of him. His navy suit was still buttoned, his grey tie was straight, even his silver wristwatch seemed polished, but his eyes were wild. He pointed toward the baby in Dr. Hale's arms. "That child has no connection to me," Ethan shouted. The laboratory confirmed it twice. My entire body was trembling from exhaustion. I had been in labor for 19 hours. My hands were weak, my throat was dry, and stitches pulled painfully whenever I moved. Still, I forced myself upright. "I never cheated on you," I said. Ethan laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe that?" "It is the truth." He grabbed the DNA report and slapped it against the metal railing of the bed. 0% probability of paternity, Claire. 0, not 5, not 10. 0. One of the nurses quietly moved closer to the emergency call button. Another nurse reached toward Noah, but Dr. Hale shook his head and kept the baby protected against his chest. I looked at Ethan and felt the same helplessness that had followed me for months. "I don't understand the test," I whispered. "But I know what I did and what I didn't do." Ethan leaned closer. "Then tell me his name. There is no other man. Stop lying." "I'm not lying." My scream tore through the room so violently that Noah startled and began to cry. Dr. Hale immediately stepped between us. "That is enough," he said. Ethan turned on him. "This is none of your business. I delivered this child, and your behavior is placing my patient under dangerous stress. That makes it my business." Ethan pointed at Noah again. "You can keep protecting her, doctor, but the science does not lie." Dr. Hale looked down at the baby. For several seconds, he said nothing. His thumb moved gently along the edge of Noah's left ear, where a small blue crescent-shaped mark rested beneath the pale lavender cap. Then the doctor's expression changed. His face became pale. His eyes moved from the birthmark to Ethan. "Where is your mother?" he asked. Ethan looked confused. "What?" "Evelyn Bennett." "Where is she?" "How do you know my mother?" Dr. Hale did not answer. Instead, he asked one of the nurses to bring him the newborn screening folder and Claire Morgan's fertility treatment records. My heart started beating faster. "What is happening?" I asked. Dr. Hale studied the birthmark again. "Claire, did anyone ever explain precisely which sample was used during your final fertility procedure?" I stared at him. "Ethan's sample. Did you see his name written on the container?" "I saw paperwork with his name." "Did you witness the laboratory verification?" "No, Evelyn handled the clinic arrangements." Ethan's anger briefly disappeared. "My mother arranged the appointments because Claire was Overwhelmed, he said. Dr. Hale slowly lifted his eyes, and because you refused to attend most of them, Ethan's jaw tightened. That does not make the child mine. No, Dr. Hale replied. It does not. My chest tightened. The room suddenly felt colder. Ethan gave me a cruel, satisfied smile. Even the doctor admits it. Dr. Hale turned toward him. She's telling the truth. Ethan's smile vanished. What did you say? This child is not biologically yours, but Claire did not betray you. Those two statements cannot both be true. They can when someone replaces one man's genetic sample with another. The room fell silent, except for Noah's soft crying and the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. Ethan stared at Dr. Hale. Whose sample? The doctor looked toward the doorway. Evelyn Bennett was standing there. She wore a cream-colored designer coat, pearl earrings, and the composed expression she had used throughout our marriage whenever she wanted the world to believe she was the most dignified person in the room. But when she saw Dr. Hale examining the birthmark behind Noah's ear, her face collapsed. Her handbag slipped from her fingers and struck the floor. Dr. Hale turned toward Ethan. This child's genetic father is your deceased brother, Lucas. Ethan did not move. For a moment, I thought he had not understood. Then he whispered, Lucas has been dead for 8 years. Yes, Dr. Hale said. But a fertility clinic preserved several of his samples before his cancer treatment. Ethan turned slowly toward Evelyn. Mom? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Dr. Hale continued. I treated Lucas during the final year of his illness. That birthmark appeared behind his left ear, behind your grandfather's ear, and behind 2 other men in Evelyn's family. It is associated with a rare hereditary vascular pattern, documented in Lucas's medical records. Ethan shook his head. A birthmark does not prove anything. No, but it gave me a reason to check, Dr. Hale handed Noah carefully to the nurse and opened the newborn. Screening folder, a preliminary genetic panel, found a marker associated with Lucas's stored medical profile. I requested an emergency comparison after Claire arrived in labor because something in her fertility history did not make sense. Ethan looked at me. You knew? No, I said. I swear I knew nothing. His mother stepped into the room. This discussion should not happen here, Evelyn said. Dr. Hale faced her. Where should it happen? At the clinic whose records were altered? At the bank where you paid the laboratory director? Or inside another courtroom after your former daughter-in-law has already been publicly accused of adultery? Evelyn's composure cracked. I did what was necessary. Ethan looked at her in disbelief. What was necessary? She glanced toward Noah. To preserve our family. Something inside me went cold. I had heard Evelyn speak about family hundreds of times during my marriage. She used the word as though it represented love. That night, I finally understood that when Evelyn said family, she meant bloodline, reputation, and control. She did not mean people. Ethan stepped toward her. Tell me exactly what you did. Evelyn lifted her chin. You were unable to give Claire a child. My eyes moved toward Ethan. During our fertility treatments, he had always insisted that the problem was mine. He told relatives that my body had failed. He allowed his mother to recommend specialists, diets, injections, and procedures. He watched me blame myself after every unsuccessful attempt. Now he looked terrified. What are you talking about? He asked. Evelyn's voice dropped. You were infertile. Ethan stared at her. That is not true. It was confirmed before your wedding. He looked as though she had struck him. Before my wedding? You had an infection in college. The damage was permanent. I was never told. Your father and I decided there was no reason to burden you. I gripped the blanket. For 4 years, I had injected hormones into my body. I had endured surgeries, tests, and procedures. I had cried on bathroom floors after negative results. And the Bennett family had known that Ethan was infertile. Before we even married, Dr. Hale looked at Evelyn with open disgust. You allowed Claire to undergo unnecessary treatment. She wanted a child. She believed the fertility problem was hers. That belief kept my son from feeling defective. Ethan's face twisted. You lied to me for years. Evelyn stepped toward him. I protected. You humiliated my wife to protect me? You were my surviving son. The words hung in the air. Lucas had been Evelyn's oldest child. He had died at 29 after a long battle with lymphoma. Before chemotherapy, he stored reproductive samples because his doctors warned that treatment might leave him infertile. Lucas never recovered enough to use them after he died. Evelyn became obsessed with preserving something biological from him. She kept his room unchanged. She renewed the storage payments every year. She referred to the frozen samples as Lucas's future. None of us understood what she meant. Until that night, Dr. Hale's voice hardened. Lucas signed a directive stating that his samples were to be destroyed upon his death, unless he provided written authorization for a specific partner. Evelyn looked away. I could not allow that. So, you forged a continuation form. I was his. Mother, you were not the owner of his body. Ethan grabbed the edge of a chair. How did Lucas's sample end up in Claire? Evelyn said nothing. Dr. Hale answered. According to the records I reviewed, your mother paid a fertility clinic administrator to relabel one of Lucas's remaining samples with your identification number. My stomach turned. I remembered the final procedure clearly. Evelyn had driven me to the clinic because Ethan said he had an important meeting. She filled out forms while I changed into a gown, she held my handbag. She spoke privately with the clinic administrator. Afterward, she took me home and told me not to mention the procedure to anyone until we knew whether it had worked. Dr. Hale looked behind Noah's left ear, saw a small blue crescent, and recognized the truth Evelyn had tried to. Buried the child belonged biologically to Lucas, but Noah did not belong to Lucas's memory. He did not belong to Evelyn's bloodline. He did not belong to Ethan's regret. He belonged first to himself, and he was my son, not because of what a laboratory placed inside my body, but because every day after his birth, I chose to love, protect, and raise him without asking him to repair the damage adults had caused. That was the truth no DNA report could ever measure.